let's play nice. Okay. All right. Friday, February 3rd. Okay, let's pray and then we shall talk. Oh, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and all the pieces to it. Lord, thank you that you are a good God and that we are loved. Lord, we need your help today, obviously, as we talk about biology, because it's something that we understand and yet it's something that we don't understand, and you are very present in it, and you understand all of it. So help us as we talk, that simple truths would just reaffirm themselves in our heads, in our hearts, and that we would once again see you bigger and better than we thought you were. And Lord, thank you for these kids. Please be with Sydney and Eden as they're not here. But thank you for them and for the miracle that they are. And thank you for Kaylee. And thank you for Rachel. And thank you for Daniel. And thank you for what you are doing in them, and that you breathed into them the breath of life. And that even though they started as one little cell that had to break apart and divide, you have watched them from that, and you knit them together the exact way that they are, and you guide and direct their life's journey. Lord, thank you for being that big, and thank you for the sunshine today, and for the cold weather, and thank you for haircuts, and thank you for warm blankets, and thank you for jewelry and sparkly things that make us smile. And thank you that you're just big. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so this is not about biology. What is one thing that just kind of makes you happy whenever you see it?
I'm gonna be honest, food. Food makes me happy when I see it.
All kinds of food?
Oh, okay.
Restaurant food, grocery store food. Like, I get geeked out at the meat market.
Me too. A good steak and like yogurt with granola and all those goodies on top.
Prepared.
Prepared.
So prepared food.
Yes.
Okay.
But not gonna lie, I love going to the farmer's market and looking at all the fresh produce.
That's true. It is
It's
beautiful.
just so beautiful.
It is. I would agree.
Vibrant.
It is. Daniel, something you see that makes you happy, like a Rubik's Cube.
Yes. And frogs.
Live frogs?
Someone else.
They
I love
are.
frogs.
Have you seen? Well, okay, we watched a documentary on the frog. It's kind of the big ugly frog that carries the babies on the back, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. You know, it's like, but cool. All right, frogs and Rubik's cubes. All righty, Rachel.
Chinese food or sushi?
Oh.
Prepared?
Yes.
Okay, not in the box, right? Or sometimes.
No, not Chinese food in a box, but yeah.
Unless it's a takeout
Chinese
box.
food.
That
Have you
is.
ever been to Hibachi Grill?
Yeah.
Once.
It's I like the hot
Also,
Where?
That's
good.
good.
Is it hot or is it super hot?
It is. It is amazing. I don't know. It's a big oven. Okay, so I have to tell you, this week, I don't know why, but I'm always thinking. But back when I was in school, my teachers always did a board for the month. And so they would put the month up there. And always at the end of the month, there were these empty days. Every time I saw those empty days, I was like, ooh, free days before we have to start the next month. Which is a really dumb thing, but I'm like, those free days just made me happy, like, you can breathe. And even now, I'm like, I love the blank days that don't have any numbers in them. And no, we don't ever get them. But I was like, it still makes me happy. I don't know why. So anyway, today we're talking about biology. That had nothing to do with biology other than it's just fun to kind of engage first. I have a question for you at the end, hopefully we'll get to this, because this is relatively understandable. Yeah, we'll just stop with that sentence. So, what is biology? Biology is the study of life and living organisms. So that's when you have to stop and ask the question, so what is life? Or what does it mean to be alive? And being the morbid person that I am, a lot of times when I define things, I look at the opposite or when it's not. So, what does it mean to be dead? Because that's obviously not alive, right? And our best pictures for not alive or dead are funerals and decay. What are some things that you have seen or noticed at a funeral? And this can include if you had to put a pet down, okay? Usually there's not a funeral, but you're right there. And it's like you get to watch life leave a living body. So, what are some things that you notice at funerals, or if you've walked through a place where things are decaying after a fire, around a farm, trees that have been felled, places like that? What are some things that you notice about this dead environment, or about dead?
Here's something that's dead.
I feel like you just, I don't know. I feel like there's a different atmosphere. Like when you're asking me what's in the atmosphere that's different. But I feel like when like, even like when a baby calf is being born right in front of your eyes, you're like, oh my goodness, your eyes get so wide.
Mhm.
And you feel, I feel bad. And there's funerals.
Have you seen a bloated cow, like dead cow?
Yes, it's really sickening.
So, I mean, this is really obvious, and I'm not trying to be stupid, but it's just obvious. When you either are alive or you're not. Like, it's like, there's not really an in-between. And, okay, we grasp the obvious. Okay, you either are or you aren't. That's a good thing. What else do you notice about funerals, decay, dead animals?
I noticed that, like, even if something like dies, there's like life that comes from that almost. Like, I don't know. Like, it's really weird. Like,
I feel like you can think of it as like the grass is living because you can get nutrients from the grass.
Yeah.
And the cows, because the cows fertilizing it, but.
It's true, though. Like, in our world, and we've volcanoes that have erupted and covered everything, and they die usually within 30 years of an eruption if the land has not been erupted on again, has some of the most fertile soil because of all that death and the ash that went into the ground. So so life does, within, we're talking living organisms within the plant world, life does come from death, which to believers, that doesn't sound real odd, okay? It's just, we've heard that before. Oh. Okay, anything else about funerals?
I haven't been to very many funerals, but like,
Yay.
you see a lot of people crying. I feel like it's a serious moment.
Mhm.
Don't break a laugh.
Unless you're outside. But apparently some people's emotions, they sometimes nervous laughter is the way. So there is death or life, there's this whole emotional realm that plays into it, very much part of it. So, my dad's funeral, they, and thank goodness for funeral people who take care of the body. They do their best to make it look as nice as possible, but it just doesn't look the same. Usually, because they have to fill the body with fluid, they don't look like them, and you just notice like the whole essence of life is not there.
Good way to put it.
Okay. So anyway, we talked about funerals and decay, which is, it's morbid and good all at the same time, because it's obvious, well, what does it mean to not be alive if we're trying to figure out what alive means? But it's still, if I said, Rachel, what does it mean to be alive to you? You ask anybody on the street, they're gonna have to pause, because we engage in it every day, but yet it is one of those words that's really just hard to explain, and we're back to it. So let's go to something that can be studied, and that is science and matter. So from your biology book that you're probably engaged in right now this year, and from your UTT book, all living things have these 7 things. They have organization, so there's a degree of order, including one or more cells. All living things have some sort of response to stimuli. These are adjustments to physical or chemical changes. And we think of it like, oh, the stove is hot. If I don't know, if I go over there and I accidentally touch it, I'm going to pull my hand away really fast and go, ouch, that's hot. That's a response to stimuli. And we know that with plants, they will lean towards the sun. And animals, those who graze, will find fresh food, or the freshest food that they can. So there's a response to stimuli. There's what's called homeostasis. This is a stable internal condition. Now, snakes are cold-blooded, and before they can slither around all day, they have to be a certain temperature, which is often why they will find warm places to be at night so that they can get up and move. Or sometimes you will see a snake sunning itself on a rock because they're trying to not activate their internal conditions, but keep them at the same temperature so that they can move around and do things. And us, very well, we put on layers of clothes, but we have an internal temperature that just kind of stays the same unless things are wrong. Metabolism. This is the ability to use energy to power life processes. Growth and development. There is an increase in size. Sometimes that's physically, sometimes it's just in understanding, because old people shrink, but you would think that their brains are bigger. Okay, and I say that metaphorically because their brains don't get bigger, but they should understand more. Reproduction, which is a production of new organisms like themselves. Alive things have changed through time. So change without changes to the genes. So there's a change happening that is not because your genes are changing. It's a different type of change. So scientifically, if we just look at matter, alive things have these, and life is engaging in these things or having these things. And I'm just going to pull out reproduction. There are people who will get married and they have the option of reproduction, but they may or may not have kids. So just because you have those things doesn't mean that you engage in all of them. However, some of them are like, okay, homeostasis and metabolism, it can't really get away from those. Those happen without. So there's a little bit of both going on in here, but they're just looking at scientifical matter stuff. And scientifical is not a word. I keep saying that. I had trouble with that this week. I kept calling everything scientifical, and I'd write it, I'm like, that's not right. Anyway, so something that complicates this is dualism. So dualism, we know, is believing in matter and spiritual. So material and spiritual, or matter and spirit. So if we have a worldview that has a monist point of view, they only believe in matter, or they only believe in spirit, they only have one thing to explain because they will stick with that. But dualists, those worldviews that believe we are comprised of two essential things, have two things to explain and the relationship between them. So we will look at that when we look at the worldviews. The next obvious question after we try and go, well, what is life? And we try to explain that, if we get stuck, or even if you don't get stuck, you obviously move to, well, who gives it? Or how did it arise? Which just means, where did it come from? Which will lead to the little arrow part that says, how much of the matter or the spiritual life do you have control over? That's a farther out question that comes, but that one will come too. Regardless, this who gives life, how did life arise, or where did it come from, or even what is it, this is the starting point for a meaningful worldview. It steers, what you believe about life, steers the values of people. It determines where you end up and affects everything in your life. Any guesses why that happens with biology?
Repeat the question one more time.
Well, why would biology, just asking what is life, why would biology be a starting point for a meaningful worldview, steer your values, determine where you end up, and affect absolutely everything in your life? Because that seems like it has pretty big tentacles touching absolutely everything in your life. Why?
Biology is how we're made up of cells and explains everything. Why we are what we are. I don't know.
Possibly. I'm sure there's part of that to it. What do you think, Daniel? Okay, we'll go with the shrub. What about you, Rachel?
I'm not sure yet.
I can tell you what I think. Starting point for a meaningful worldview, values, where I'm going to end up, everything in my life. Sounds a little bit like philosophy, doesn't it? I'm philosophizing. I'm asking those beginning questions, those religious questions. So just like theology did, just like philosophy did, just like ethics even gets you there, biology takes you back to those beginning questions, and you start to be very philosophical. So we're engaging in philosophy a little bit right now. And it takes you back to those beginning questions, which I did call religious questions, because it affects everything that you believe and therefore how you act. So religion, yes, is Christianity, it's Catholicism, it's being a Lutheran, it's being a Methodist, it's being a Satan worshiper. All of that is religion. Islam is a religion. But it's all based on what you believe, and because of your beliefs, you act a certain way. So, what you believe about life, biology has great consequences, ramifications, effects. I couldn't pick just the right word, but it has these tentacles that just get longer and longer and go everywhere. And I think this is fascinating and scary all at the same time. Because when you guys go to biology class, what's your perspective? You're in 10th grade. This is normal biology time. What's your perspective of biology class? And that's no offense to your mom. Just what are you thinking, or what were you thinking when you saw the book at the beginning of the year?
Oh, so scary. Oh my gosh.
Why was it scary though?
Because it was big. There's so much information in it. Thankfully, she packed it down so that you could actually mentally comprehend it and not all have to be thrown in your face, because I feel like when I look at something so big, it's like, I don't really process everything that I'm going to read on it. It's not going to stick with me. But when she actually sees like those videos,
Okay. So biology, just the science of it can be overwhelming.
there's a lot.
Okay. What, anything else you were thinking besides, this is a really big book and it's not gonna stay in my head?
A couple weeks ago, we watched a video, and I remember us thinking that it was like a horror show, because it was, like, for geeks, it would be a horror show, because they made it seem actually interesting.
Okay.
And we watched, a virus come into the cell and watch it kind of like take over, and that's why, yeah, sorry.
It's alright, I know.
I don't like biology, but that was really good.
What other thoughts did you have, Rachel, at the beginning of the year when you saw the biology book?
It was scary, but I was like kind of excited about that kind of stuff. I don't know.
No, that's.
I really want to be a vet, so that kind of stuff makes a little more sense to me. But
Or
So-
you're willing to put in the work to grasp it because there's a something in the future that you're looking for.
yeah, like all my other books, I'm just kind of like reading it, and like, but like when I read my biology book, I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
Take note, yeah. What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, the book is a lot bigger than a few years ago when I did draw. It's like,
Yeah, compared to all of our other books, like our little other books are like this one, and then yours is like this big, and then we get to like something that's like that big.
And then you
But
have
then
like,
you box like the study thing on top of it.
and you have like 25 to 30 definitions for every chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
I don't get definitions, cause like, it makes sense, but like, why is it?
I definitely feel like you have to reword the definitions, otherwise sometimes it just is not comprehensive.
I think it helps to write them down because then you're
Yeah,
thinking it through.
yeah, I agree.
It helps you. It helps me memorize them.
I feel like it helps me memorize anything when I just write it down.
Not gonna say I have them all memorized, but you know.
Definitions have their place, and it makes, when you're talking with people who are like-minded, it just makes the whole description and the vocabulary like explode. Like, you understand what I'm talking about when I use this word because you've had this word. So that's when it's beneficial, but when you're trying to take a concept that you kind of understand and you're trying to name it with a definition, that's when you have to play this, well, does this fit? And if it does, it stays. If this doesn't fit, then you have to throw it out. And what you will find as you go through any science class is that sometimes things fit and sometimes they don't. There's always exceptions. And so it gets tedious. But did any of you think philosophy, like, wow, this is gonna help me understand what life is? And this is going to just help me decide and steer my values.
I feel like I would think that, but that's not how my brain would process it as that. But yeah, philosophy wouldn't be the thing that comes to my head, because I don't think big words like that are big basis.
Yeah.
But like, yes, I would say that in a way.
I think that it's easy, especially with biology and chemistry and even history. And when you guys do economics and when you do government, it's easy to see those and get stuck in the forest of those things and just see it for the science without really realizing that, oh, this is all based on what I believe about life. Like there's a bigger thing, and it's helpful to just stop and think about that sometimes, because I think that makes your brain explode. At least it makes my brain explode, and I think everybody needs to explode in brains a little bit. Okay, but that's all we were going to say about biology. I'm not going to go into the scientific part of it. We're going to move on to the worldview comparison. We're going to start with secularism. Your notes are not going to look exactly like my screen, but all the information is there. So, secularists believe in neo-Darwinianism, which is a $10 word. What in the world is that? Well, that's the italics.
Darwinism.
No, it's Darwinianism. It's weird. I checked the book. Neo-Darwinianism says new species arise through the process of natural selection acting over vast periods of time because of genetic mutations, in other words, chance. This is from Charles Darwin and Gregor Mendel. So let's break it down just a little bit. Neo just means new or fresh. Okay, so it's a new take on what Darwin said, Darwinian. The key things: man is matter, is formed without purpose through a natural process that did not have mankind in mind. That wasn't the end goal. So pretty much people are fancy animals / accidents. Oh, look what I made that I didn't try to make at all. Okay? Life appeared and then became more complex through mindless process of mutation and natural selection. Natural selection is a nice way of saying survival of the fittest, and I forget that, so I have to write it a lot. So if we condense it down even more, it is no purpose, no plan, no consequences, survival of the fittest. Life is matter, and it's temporal, meaning it has a beginning, it has an ending. But exactly how that happens was all chance. Okay? So you see, you have the word, you have the definition, and then I just kind of try and condense it down because that's how my brain thinks. That's secularism. Now, Marxism, very similar but different. Their word is punctuated equilibrium. Do not think commas and periods and question marks. Or maybe you could, I don't know if that would work. Anyway, what is it exactly? It is the belief that evolutionary changes occur over relatively quick periods of time, followed by periods of time with little or no evolutionary change. Okay? So, let's summarize. Man is matter that evolves in rapid explosion-like ways, and this is spiraling upward. So it's jumps, rapid change, chance still, and revolution. Not evolution, but revolution. So let's condense a little bit more. There's still no purpose, and there is no plan, and it is survival of the fittest. But what Marxists believe is you need to make yourself the fittest, and of course you are if you're working class, if you are part of the proletariat. And there, whatever jump happens, it is an upward progress. But this upward progress comes violently. So think almost of a volcano. At some point, it's going to erupt and it's going to spew over everybody. And everything in its wake is really going to be, well, number one, they're probably going to be killed or maimed or hurt in some way. As we look at Marxism, which the end is communism, that is kind of the deal. That's what happens. It's a rapid thing, the explosion, although it builds up a lot. The explosion itself happens rapidly and violently. So once again, life is matter, and it is temporary. Okay? Postmodernism. All of these three kind of act together, but just remember that postmodernism is a critique, so they're always poking holes in all beliefs. They believe in anti-essentialism, and you go, excuse me? Because it's a word that doesn't seem to fit. Because they deal with a different side of life. So what is it exactly? It is the belief that entities do not possess essences. And what are essences? Those are defining attributes. Rather, an entity's identity is thought to be the result of social construction. In other words, there is nothing within Rachel that is Rachel. Everything that is inside or makes Rachel Rachel is something that she picked up from her family or from her culture. That's the same for all of you. So, identity is the result of social construction. You have no core. God is dead or unreachable. That's our locked door. So biology is just a story. It's a social construct, something people made up to keep you in line. It is incapable of getting us out of the mess we are in, so it's devoid of truth. And the self, and what alive means, is socially constructed by your culture. So I didn't put no purpose, no plan, or whatever, because they don't really care about that. It's like this big neon sign that says life is a social construct and it's temporary. And they're just real downers. I'm sorry. It's like, you're nothing. Oh, thanks. Okay, that's great. However, here's the problem, though, is this is the kind of culture that we live in. And if you look around, you will see that. It is not fully taken root, but it's a big piece. So, yeah, just makes me go. Anyway, okay, let's move on to the other. It seems like the other side of the world when you talk about new spirituality. What do they believe in? They believe in spiritual evolution. What exactly is that? It is the belief that humanity is continually progressing toward higher consciousness. That's the way that we're going. Okay, so now we change, our monus changes from matter to spirit, okay? So the body is a manifestation of the spirit within you. So your body is kind of a picture of your spirit. That's what manifestation means. Evolution is a change in the flow of cosmic energy, not physical changes. It's all about the energy, resulting in a higher consciousness among humanity. The human race continually moves toward this spiritual evolution or away from it by the thoughts they think. And the more the individual disappears as a separate person, the bigger the collective consciousness gets and enlightens others. And they're just assuming at some point there's just going to be this really big spike where all of a sudden everybody realizes, oh, higher consciousness. Okay? So, let's break it down a little bit more. The ambiguous consciousness is the source for your spirit. The body is a picture of your spirit. It's all about the spirit. Less individuality leads to more consciousness for everybody. And that is the road humanity is on. Life is now not matter, it is spirit, and it is eternal, because the consciousness has been around forever. So your spirit is eternal. We take out temporal, and now we have this other ginormous word that's short, but it's like, yeah, you explain eternal for me. We say, for eternal, no beginning and no end. We can say that, we have no idea what it means. Like, what is it to not have a beginning or an end? It just means you always are. Well, what's that like? And none of us who have ever lived can say, oh, what's this? So it's hard. Okay, so, once again, new spirituality, anything. It's all about the consciousness, okay? And biology it's still evolution, but it's evolution of the spirit and evolution towards like a great awakening of many, okay? Make sense? Yes and no, all at the same time. Yes, no. Understand the words? Don't get it. Okay, let's move on. Islam. They believe in special creation. What is special creation? It is the belief that the cosmos, fancy word for universe, and all life were brought into existence by the creative act of God. Like, yay, something I understand. Okay, that is special creation. So, summarize. God is the creator. We need to remember who the God is, though. It's Allah. Okay? As creator, he is other than creation. Fancy word for that is transcendent. God's creation is perfect, not sinful. Adam and Eve did not sin in the garden. Life is like a checkbook. Now, I don't think you guys are so far removed that you don't know checkbook. Does anybody not understand a checkbook? You've seen your parents have a checkbook?
I have one too.
Okay.
You
Yes.
pay.
Yeah, you write it on a piece of paper. But it's all based on what you have in your bank account, right? So, because you don't write it out unless you have money in your bank account. So, life is like that. There's debits, which are the subtractions, and there are credits. Those are the actions, the good actions, the obedient actions that you do. So, love has nothing to do with it. It is all about obedience. So, your life is really about, okay, I didn't act according to what Allah has said over here. So I have a debit, I have a minus. But then I did 3 things that were in obedience to Allah. Remember, according to Islam, you have these angels that watch and record all your good deeds. And that is really how you go through it. You want to make sure when you die that your checkbook has a positive, not a negative. Now, the good thing is that life is on purpose. God's the creator. There was a plan, but the push is you obey at all costs, because that's your checkbook. That's what Allah is gonna, quote unquote, check when you die. However, as we talked about way back in the beginning of this class, Allah could say, I see your checkbook, I hear what the angels say, you're not coming in. So there's always that, are we really going to get in? Am I really doing good enough? So life is really about matter, your physical body obeying. It is easier when your spirit, your want to, okay, your essence, your identity, it's easier when the spirit agrees. And we would all say, yeah, it's easier, that just makes it easier. But life, your physical life is temporal, but you will have an everlasting life, meaning you had a beginning, you have a body that ends, but then your spirit will go on forever somewhere. So Islam takes all of that, puts it in there. So now we have, this is our first dualism, okay? And I don't know what and. Does it make some sense there? Okay, let us talk about Christianity. Okay, Christianity, special creation. What? Same words. Yes, it is. Because it is the belief that the cosmos and all life were brought into existence by the creative act of God. Yes, Christianity believes this. The Bible teaches this. God is the creator. Once again, same thing. He is other than creation. Just fancy word for that is transcendent. Why do I keep saying that? Because it's finally making sense in my head, the difference between transcendent and immanent. I've heard those forever, and so I'm sharing it with you. Sorry, if you already know, I apologize. Okay, God created everything in a state of shalom. Go back to Genesis in your brain. But man sinned. Well, then what? God took responsibility for his creation. It is, you could say it is a checkbook. Because of our sin, all we have is debits, all we have is negatives, all we have is everlasting subtraction because we are sinful. However, When God took responsibility for his creation, he sent Jesus, and Jesus paid in full. So we don't have to look at the checkbook anymore. And it was because of God's love. So God's love has absolutely everything to do with it. Now, summarizing this, there's a lot of plans here. On purpose with a plan, that was God. Sin was our contribution, but God had a plan for that. He paid. Then there was more plan, which was to transform us so that in the end we will be together. Life is about matter and spirit being transformed. They were created in Genesis not to separate. I think that's why we get new bodies in heaven. So we have a whole temporal, I have a physical, matter, scientific, if we want to be silly, scientifical body. But I also have one that will live forever. And it's all, so it is everlasting. Okay. That's biology. When we go over biology, it's more like the whole philosophical thingamajig, all right, that we talk about. But it still deals with scientific. So tell me what you caught, and then I have a question for you. Remember my question. What did you catch? It could be good, it could be bad, it could be ugly, it could be like, how can they think that way? But nonetheless, what did you catch?
Islam and Christianity, I know that if I read the Quran or whatever, if I like maybe lived in their beliefs for like a week or something, then like I would see the way they see, but I feel like they're like, yes, they believe in Allah and they believe in God, but I feel like it all ties back in. I'm so caught up on the fact that how are you denying God when all of it kind of just leads right back into it? Like you're looking really dumb. Like it's just
Maybe not dumb, I understand.
Yes,
but
yes.
deceived.
yes.
Deceived. And it seems to be a very small twist, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But it is deception. You were gonna say, Rachel?
And I was gonna say around the same thing. It's just like they believe in all the same stuff. So I don't know. Like to me, maybe it's like I don't know. I don't know if they would like be in heaven, but like I don't know. They have around the same beliefs, so I don't know.
I'm sure there will be Muslims who are in heaven.
Yeah.
But their eyes have to, well, God is the one who opens their eyes to the sinfulness. And I would think that they, probably like any human, would feel the weight of doing wrong, or even doing a perceived wrong. And I would tend to think, if your life is just negatives and positives, it would be beneficial for you to really turn your spirit off, that inner conscience, to just turn it off and almost be robotic. That's really what would help you, because otherwise the conscience just would gnaw and gnaw and gnaw. You would have some mental dilemmas and mental pressure that you could just carry around with no answer, except to go out of your faith. And if you go out of your faith, it's death to you, sometimes quite literally. Now, that is one of the reasons that if Muslims, people from Islam, can get away from their country, like even if it's to go to college, if it's to go work, that in and of itself takes the immediate pressure off. And you would think, okay, this is kind of the time to think and watch and look. But it's amazing how, it's so little change. Just so little. And yet it is so sinister. Like, it's just, very sinister. I don't know, there are a lot of times, like, I know this probably is a little bit girlish, and I apologize for it, but God gave me a lot of emotions, and I'm quite aware of them. I'm also quite aware of, like, as a mom, doing what's best for my kids when I really just wanna beat the tar out of them. You know, so I have felt that. I understand, it's like, oh my, yeah, I'm a separate person. What about you, Daniel? What did you catch?
I just think it's interesting how like some of the religions are like trying to give people purpose, and that's what's like bringing them, like that's what brings people in, sort of. And then the other ones are like, oh, no one has it, nothing is, there's no purpose.
Yeah, you have to give yourself purpose.
It seems to be like different, like drawing people, like they're both trying to draw people in, but to different parts of like people's walks, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh, I want to be purposeful, or like, oh, life doesn't matter at all, so I'm gonna do whatever I want.
yeah, yeah. It is, it's, yeah, that's a good way to put it. It is. Oh, goodness. Anyway, if you ever have a chance and you want to watch, like, people just, they're just being them. So, the best ever food review show, and it's really about food in different cultures. If you pick, you know, it's on YouTube, they're usually about maybe 15 to 20 minutes. He goes to different countries, and so he always exposes some of the beliefs that they have. And you can't separate that. And then he eats the food and asks questions. If you just want to see, like, watch people who have, they're just there, they're just being them. That's kind of a fun thing to watch, like, oh, worldviews. The one in when he went to Indonesia, really, that's the one that gets me, because I'm just like, and it's not about food. The other thing is, oh, Lord, I just forgot his name. Anyway, he lives in California. I can see him in my head because I met him. And he witnesses to people in California. And Living Waters, thank you. I'm sure there's one. Living Waters is what you look up on YouTube. And he
I've
will,
seen that too.
yeah, he will, Ray Comfort, thank you. Ray Comfort, actually met him, I'm so excited.
I think we might have had to watch a video of theirs,
Yeah.
Bible. I think that's why.
You might have, but he goes out and he asks people if he can ask them questions, and he asks if he can film it. And then people just, he's talked to people who believe in new spiritualism and believe in Satan worship, and he just engages them. It's really with the same kind of script, but he's always very polite, and you can, like, now that you are where you are, you can, like, oh, I get how you're thinking. So, and those are relatively short, so if you ever just want to watch some of this in action, because we sit here and we talk about it, and then to see it in action, it's like, ooh, okay. Now when my son watches the Clone Wars, anything with Star Wars, I'm like, new spirituality. Wrong. But I don't tell him, we just try and enjoy it for what it is. Anyway, okay, so the question that I wanted to ask you. What are some of the places that biology reaches? Now, this isn't philosophical as much as where do we see our beliefs that we have based on our biology? Where do we see biology in our lives? So it's simple, it's not meant to be hard, but
We're all just walking cells, and like if you actually think of it, we're all equals. Because we are the exact same thing, just uniquely ourselves.
okay, so you see it as you see people. So as we see humanity, where else do you see, I'm gonna cheat and take yours. So we see it in humanity. Rachel wants to humanity. You wanna be a vet. So that choice of life, that choice of vocation is all about life because it's living animals. Okay, so this is kind of the place I'm going. Where else does biology reach into? So if it's humanity, any kind of doctor, right? So it can be psychiatrist, medical, which puts who else right there? Nurses. Also, think about, they're not social doctors, but social workers, right? Where else does biology reach? What other maybe professions does biology
The
reach?
food industry.
How?
Like, would it just like,
I mean, you're cooking animals.
yeah,
Okay.
and then growing things.
All right. Shoot.
You can have mold on things.
Oh, which brings me medicine.
Oh, yeah.
Where, Daniel? Where else? Biology reaches into.
We talked about that this week, actually.
Or vocation.
Funerals? Oh, yeah. Scientists? That works.
Graveyards. Now, I know that's more about math and land, but
But in all reality, you're sick in your body.
even the whole cremation. What about this one?
Yeah. The organisms. Yeah.
Maybe a better question is, where do you not find biology?
I feel like biology is in everything. We just said it's in all the worldviews, so why can't it be in everything else?
I think we're hard pressed to touch because of the tentacle reach. We're hard pressed to touch any place that there's not some sort of life. It's big. And yet, sometimes when you're in school or in college or just doing your job day to day, it like suddenly gets smaller because we limit it to this. And God made it huge. So, anyway, that's just me being overwhelmed. Okay, you're good and you're done. Thank you very much.